Okay, everybody, we're at the top of the hour, West Coast. Good morning, 11 a.m. Those of you on the East, good afternoon. Thanks a lot for joining us for what I believe is our 69th Virtual Thursday training. We're glad to have you on board today. This is going to be an interesting topic today on importing NFIRS data. Before we get started, I want to thank both Brittany Bush, who is one of our key people in the office. When you call the office, she's usually the first voice you hear. She wears a lot of hats, but one of those hats is helping customers with importing NFIRS data. So she's on board with us today to help answer questions, as is Sarah Mintz, who is an account executive with our organization, with our family at emergency reporting. And she's also extremely knowledgeable on the system and on NFIRS. So between the three of us, we should be able to tackle your questions quite nicely today. So let's, without further ado, let's begin. Again, today's topic for Virtual Thursday is importing NFIRS data. My name is Tom Lewis. I am the Department of Defense and International Trainer with Emergency Reporting. It's been a couple sessions since I've done a Virtual Thursday, so I do see some familiar names that are joining us today, so it's great to have you back. We really appreciate you guys being consistent participants in our Virtual Thursday training. I've used DR since 2004, been a trainer since 2011, and just got back yesterday from a fantastic event at Rock Island Arsenal in Illinois. They were terrific hosts, and we spent 2 days training members of their department on how to use emergency reporting. So it was very, very productive 2 days out there in Illinois. As you guys all know, we have many training opportunities available to you, regional training conferences, of which I'll talk about here momentarily, on-site training, which I just returned from, and this picture is a picture of our Mark, one of our newest trainers out in Alhambra. He's there with Chris, another one of our Western trainers there in California, teaching the Alhambra Fire Department about our system. So welcome to that California customer, and they are there as we speak today. So this is their last day out in California, so I know they're having a really good event out there. The 3-day regional training conference, which is coming up, consists of these 3 days: the Essentials, Integration, and Lead ER. And I know many of you have been with us from Virtual Thursday, so I won't go into too many details here, other than to announce our 3 conferences that are scheduled for this year. Cincinnati is filling up fast. That happens in less than a month. Then we've got Charlotte, North Carolina in November, and Monterey, California in December. So if you want to learn more and to sign up, simply go to eventbrite.com. And they have kind of a tricky search. So you've got to search by keyword emergency reporting and then by city. And just pick Cincinnati, Charlotte, or Monterey, depending on which one you're closest to, and all the details are there. And we would very much love to see you at one of these conferences, not just to learn, but also to share some of your best practices. Since many of you are experienced users, you would add a lot of value to coming to one of these events as far as networking and sharing those best practices. Since we last met on April 16th, we have 23 new and upgraded customers, and I don't know if any of them are on with us today, but this is definitely a great Virtual Thursday for new customers, since we are talking about something that typically occurs with a brand new customer or a customer that is existing but decides they want to bring in their previous NFIRS data from years ago to get their system up to speed for accreditation, and to have multiple years worth of data to begin to analyze their department's performance. Before we get started, I want to give you guys the latest update. You probably saw this posted as you logged in yesterday. Changes to maintenance types and to basic for personnel. Both of these have come from customer requests. And as always, if you click on these system alerts, the orange text will take you to the news and details of the updates. Knowing most of you, you probably have already seen this, but if you haven't, I just want to give you a quick rundown of what we've done over the last few weeks. So incident roles, this has been a big request out of a lot of our customers. You'll notice that in the incident module on basic info 4, where you add apparatus, when you add people to the truck, You will now see the add role in orange text. You can click through to that and it will pop up personnel roles, a little pop-up window from which you can select NFIRS specific roles, I should say actions taken codes from NFIRS here to where you can assign certain individuals the role or roles that they performed at the scene. Now right now this is the question I know probably some of you will ask is, well, is there a report for this? Not yet. What we do, we are part of, we follow the Agile software development process. So we release things as they are finished, but sometimes parts of it, like a report here, is not yet in place. I talked to the product owner, the person responsible for this module, and a report is in the works, because that has been one thing customers have requested is we want to be able to see who did what on the scene, especially those, one of the key ones was driver operators, those that need to get credit for the time that they spend doing driver operating roles at the scene if they're not an official engineer yet. So just know that a report is coming, so it would be a good idea that if this is something your department needs to begin tracking, that you can now do so in basic info 4 in the incidents module. So pretty neat feature there. The other one is maintenance types. Before we had clean, inspect, repair, and other, I believe. Maybe test was in there. Now we have much more descriptive maintenance types, and this is going to be part of our 1500, what we're calling Fire 1500. That is its beta name right now. We're working on an exact name for it, but something like safety analytics is what we're tossing around, and this is going to contribute to that. You can see here NFPA annual test for ladders and for hoses. So I know many of you that are joining today are very much on the administrative side, and we're definitely going to get into the NFIRS components today, but I did want to introduce this to you, especially for you to pass on to other key people in your organization that need to know this. So we've expanded the list of maintenance types to better reflect what goes on in a fire organization, and look for more functionality as we release our 1500 pump panel and analytics. Okay, here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to introduce the NFIRS import tool. This is a relatively new customer-facing part of our system that allows you, the end user, to be able to import your NFIRS data. This was released earlier and there were some quirks with it. It was then turned off in the administration module, and now it's back and fully functional. So we're going to talk about that today. We're also going to go over the anatomy of an NFIRS file. And it looks like computer code, but it really isn't. And I'm going to break it out for you, so at least you've got a pretty good snapshot and understanding of what an NFIRS file contains. And then we're going to actually practice using the NFIRS import tool in my demonstration account. And then what I'd like to wrap up with, of course, besides questions, is just showing you some of the basics on the NFIRS website that you can share, not just internally in your administration roles, but also organization-wide, because a lot of times when firefighters know why they're doing things, they tend to have better buy-in and are more apt to fill it in the way you need it to be filled in, so you're collecting good data. So without further ado there, any questions before we get started on the new features or what we're going to cover today? Okay, seeing none. I want to thank you again for being with us today. If you have any questions or to schedule training for your department, this is our main email, training@emergencyreporting.com, and we'll respond promptly to you with any inquiries that you send our way. Okay. First thing I want to talk about is how to access that import tool. So where is it exactly in our system? What you will do is you'll scroll down to the administration button, and it's important to know some of you that are joining us today may not have administrative privileges, but this requires administrative privileges. So if this is a responsibility that you have in your organization, it would be wise to contact your administrator to see about gaining access here, and they'll know how to set that up. So click into administration, and then you'll see under imports. Many of you know we have the ability and have for many years to import hydrant data. Well, now we can import NFIRS data. And what I'm going to do, I know there's a lot of text here, and I don't want to, like death by PowerPoint, I don't want to do that to you, but there is a lot of really important information in this first page as far as preparing your data that I want to go over and just kind of explain, and then as we go through it, if you have any questions, to be able to answer those questions. So, of course, it has to be NFIRS 5 format, as either provided from NFIRS directly or from a third party. So a lot of customers that decide that we are, and I'm going to be biased here, but of course we are, but we are the best solution for them as far as records management goes, that they want to be able to take files, NFIRS data that they've exported from their previous records management software provider and bring it into our system. So in most cases, that data is pretty good. Sometimes it does require some cleaning up, and if you were to use this tool on your own, and I guess I should say too that you don't have to fly solo here. Our support team, our trainers can help you with this. So it seems a little daunting, looking at all of this, but if you've done this before, then you're done kind of importing and exporting of NFIRS data, you'll be fine here. But if it's your first time and you want us to kind of guide you through, we're here to help you do that. So just know that we will accept data that is in the NFIRS 5.0 format. It must be a text file. Don't open it, and I was talking with Sarah and the team today, some of the tips that they were providing me is don't open it in Word or in another document and try and then save it as a text again, because when you're doing it in those other platforms, other programs, that does make changes that are kind of under the hood coding changes to it that would render it unreadable by our import tool. So a suggestion we've given is don't even open it. Just take that file, move it to where, Dropbox or your local machine, server, wherever, and then just directly import it as a file without even opening it. But if you are using a text editing program such as, I'm on a Mac, so I've got, I've closed it, but it's a text, and then also Notepad++, and then I believe even Notepad on Word is safe, or on, I'm sorry, not Word, but Microsoft is safe, that comes with the Windows operating system. But when in doubt, don't even open it, and you probably won't want to open it because once you see what it looks like, it looks a little daunting at first. So just a tip there. And then the other aspect I want to mention is that if you have a DEP file, which is Department, Personnel, and Apparatus, it's a good idea to import that one first because it includes personnel and it includes apparatus. And what will happen by doing that one first, this is what's called the 2000 series data points in the NFIRS file. So the 2000 series you want to do first because our system will allow you to map, and I'll explain this further, but it allows you to map data that you're pulling in to existing data in your system, and most importantly, that's personnel. So you don't wind up with 2,000 people in your system because your old reporting system, people were able to spell people's names 20 different ways. I had this with the Department of Defense customer of mine where they wound up having 2,000, this was before we had this import tool, they had 2,000 personnel, but their department really only had, let's see, maybe just under 100. What was happening was the same person was entered multiple ways. Their name spelled differently, capitals, lowercase, captain spelled with CPT, all spelled out as the word captain. So we went in and manually removed those so they had a nice clean personnel file. So that was a recommendation that the product owner, Adrian Mintz, has. He's the product owner for the incidents module, recommended to me this morning that do that first if you have that file. If you don't, that's okay. But consider doing that one first because our tool will map users in the system, and we'll go through this step by step. So going through this, and normally I don't like to read what's on the screen, but in this case I think it's important to kind of discuss it. Our tool will allow you to import all incidents and related data into your account, which is then stored on servers in Denver and in Phoenix in highly protected, highly secure, and highly reliable data centers. It'll allow you to map personnel, as I just mentioned, to your existing users in your system. So if you've started populating people in your account before you did your NFIRS import, it will ask you, do you want to map that appear in this file, their import file, to existing users so you don't get those duplicates. It has validation rules that will run against NFIRS spec to make sure there's no errors in your file that is imported. And just note too, and this is what, as I was practicing, I had to make sure I had to clear out my imported incidents so I could re-import them for our demonstration today, that if you import multiple files with the same incident number, the system only imports the first record, and any other attempts to import that same incident will be ignored. And because NFIRS touches so many areas, it's recommended that this tool be used for new empty account. And this is why it's recommended for our brand new users. And that's why we've made it customer facing, because a lot of departments, they either have IT departments or IT people that can help them with this, and then they don't have to wait on us. But typically you don't have to wait very long anyway, because I know Brittany gets on top of this right away and gets this taken care of for all of our new customers if they wish to do it. Of course, only valid data gets imported into the system. Invalid data will be displayed to the end user and has to be corrected before you can bring it into the system. But the good thing is, just like our validation tool for writing an incident, we have a tool that lets you know what needs to be corrected in any of the NFIRS files that you're importing. This one's a big one right here, especially for departments that are bringing in 10,000, 20,000 incidents over multiple years. Chunk these into manageable pieces. So a recommendation would be, if you're a high volume department where you're running 9,000, 10,000 calls a year, break it down by month. If you're a department that runs 1 to 3 to 4,000 calls a year, then you could probably go year by year. But this one's a big deal here to break it up. The file upload size is limited to 5 megabytes, and that's a lot of data because this is exclusively text. But again, from your perspective, to just kind of manage it as you go and to make sure it's going the way you want it, don't try and do it all in one shot. Break it up by, and again, whatever time period is appropriate for you to keep it a manageable size. Of course, it's limited to 5 megs. And then we've got this brief guide that I want to show you that how an NFIRS file is put together. And I'm going to click there momentarily, and then I'm going to break out a description of each of those fields. And a lot of this is kind of really getting into the weeds, but the fact that you're with us today means that you probably either deal with this or at least interested in it. So I want to give you a little bit of that right now. And then feel free, if anybody else has any, from your experience, if you have something you'd like to add too, please reach out and just shoot off a chat message here, and I'll be sure to either open your mic if you have a microphone or just share that with the rest of the group. Okay, any questions so far on the step 1 part of it? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go to this. Let me make sure, hang on questions, because sometimes my questions don't scroll down here on the control panel for GoToMeeting, but we're good. Okay, awesome. Give me just a second and make sure I don't lose the ability to see that. Good. So here's an anatomy of an NFIRS file. So I'm going to go and actually show you the NFIRS file that I'm going to import into my demo account. But all these characters, and I'm not a coder, I admire them because what they can create and what they can do with our system never ceases to amaze me. But I look at this, and this is in some ways coded, but you can see as you color code things and break it out, it starts making sense. And you can probably discern that this is their FDID, state, date, month, and year, and then I'll explain the others here as we go into the file I'm going to import. So you can see how the data in the text file translates into a real incident in your account. So let me do that. Okay, so here's part of, and I just brought it into Word only to color code and show you this. Don't bring your text file into Word, just to, like I had mentioned earlier, because Word will change things around even if you don't notice it. Or not change things around, it will add coding to it that you won't even notice just by looking at the text itself. So breaking it down in the red, and Sarah and Brittany will chime in too here if I go astray, but I'm pretty sure from reviewing all of this, I've got this 100%. This identifies us as being emergency reporting. This is where the data is coming from. So they can identify the vendor, and we're considered a vendor like other RMSs out there, and this just lets them know, oh, this crazy code here means it came from emergency reporting. And I can tell you that we have had states tell us that they love us because our data is very, very clean and it doesn't come back with errors. Now, there is one ongoing issue with NFIRS right now that we helped, and I think Lisa's on with us right now from Sheboygan. We were helping her out with earlier this morning. There is a known issue with the NFIRS validation that it comes back as an error, but it actually isn't. And if we need to address that before the end of the session, I'll be glad to do that. But just know that one of our kind of, it's our pride and joy that our incident module and our ability to export to NFIRS is so reliable and so valid that it rarely, if ever, comes back with any errors. And if we discover that there's any errors coming back, we reserve development time to fix those immediately. So it's been one of our strongest suits as a records management company. Okay, first line here, A1317, what I just highlighted, that's your FDID. And you can see that runs the column here. You know, if this were broken out into a spreadsheet, we could go column by column, but the caret delimiters here, that spaces things out so you can see as if it were in a cell. Washington State, WA, so your two character state abbreviation appears here. Year, month, day, and then this is your incident number. And the 0, I'm not sure what the 0 is in all honesty. I don't know if it's held as a spacer or if this could be a different number that would identify something else. The 1000, now you're going to see in this column different numbers. What this means is that it's an NFIRS, and I'm going to go straight to it now. It is a transaction hierarchy table, so they call it transaction. And it lets the computer at NFIRS, their servers, know what that particular line item is all about. So, but when we're done, I'm going to show you links, if you don't already have them, links to access all these documents. They're readily available, and you can deep dive into them. But basically, as you can see, I've got a 1005, a 1010, and it's supposed to go to that. Oops, no, I'm supposed to go to Word. There we go. So the 1000 means that it's the incident header transaction. 1005, basic incident transaction. And all the way down, you can see, I think what will be smarter is to do this. Yes, it is much smarter. The 1010, incident address transaction. 1030 and 1035, member making the report, their authority, and then the incident remarks. And the technical term is transaction. But essentially, think of it as a line item that identifies, it's a line item identifier for this particular incident. And this is for demonstration purposes, this is essentially an entire incident the data that NFIRS cares about. Okay, I'm going to park this over a little to the side so we can continue. So, the incident address, moving down to this column, this row here, again 1010, address 668, and chances are this one means it's on and that there's data with it here. 668 Coho Way, that's the street, city, state, zip code. 1035 and 1030, the report writer and the officer in charge. 1100 is the fire form transaction. That we're using a fire incident. And I'm certain that these have some relevant codes here. But again, even I don't get into the weeds that deeply, but certainly I'm sure if I dug more, we could do that. So, this line item here, everybody, is, Sarah's got it. The 0 has to do whether it's a new or changed incident. Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. according to the NFIRS. However, we send all incidents as new, not changed. So, awesome. So what this means here, this is why we're a team today. The 0, if this were another number, and I don't know, it might even be 1, what that would mean is that as an administrator of your system, if you had to go in and update the incident after, say at the end of, you submitted it to NFIRS, but then it comes back this fire call, you have some investigation data, or you had to make a correction to it, an administrator can unlock that data, unlock that incident, correct it, change it, relock it, and then re-export it to NFIRS. I believe at that point, then that 0 might change. Is that true, Sarah? And just, you know, she doesn't have a microphone, everybody, but so she'll respond back with the chat message. Again, I may be going out on a limb that it has to do something on NFIRS side, but I think that might be something that is how it works. And if it isn't on our end, if it were to be exported, it would have that indicator there. So I hope that makes some sense. Okay, so here on this is the line item I wanted to go to next, is right here. This is your apparatus. And you can see, again, having it color coded breaks it down. I didn't color code the date and the incident number because you knew that from up here. This is engine 1. Okay, this is the NFIRS apparatus type code, and you'll see that in your drop down when you add apparatus through the administration module. Again, the date, but now along with the date, year, month, day, now we have times, and you have hours, minutes, seconds. And believe it or not, the only 3 times NFIRS cares about, you love this the coding here. So that 0 is actually if it's the exposure number. Okay, so Sarah's got that corrected. So I'm going to backtrack just for a second. This 0 along this column means that it's exposure 0, which if you didn't have additional exposures, you'll only have this 0. If you had additional exposures, it counts up from 0. So 1, 2, 3. Thank you, Sarah, for that. So not only are you all learning something today, so is the instructor, and that's usually a good thing, actually. So here, hours, seconds, minutes, as I was saying, and the only 3 times NFIRS cares about it. And if you are a fire-only customer, you'll notice this as these being the only times that are in red when you go to add an apparatus, and that's time of dispatch, time and date, of course, time of arrival, and time that you clear the scene. That's what these 3 are sequentially. Dispatch, arrival, cleared. And so you can see engine 1, engine 2, chief 1, medic 2, 3, battalion 6, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's helicopter 1 and 2 perhaps. Here, all responded to that incident. And if there's additional data with that incident, it would also appear here as different line items, and then would also match these transaction codes here, all the way down to, in this case, 1920. And essentially what you're seeing is this format allows standardization across different platforms, and it allows NFIRS to have a consistent way to pull this data and then to generate the statistics that they generate for the different agencies that they share their information with, including all of us. All right. Sarah, thank you for chiming in. Anybody else have questions so far? I'm going to take just a moment to pause to see if there's any questions. And please, everybody, too, if you have anything you'd like to add from your experience in dealing with this, just let me know. So if this is the first time you're kind of deep diving into what an NFIRS file looks like, at first it looks intimidating. And imagine 1,000 incidents stacked all on top of one another, because essentially that's what this would be. Let me open it up real quick. So this is what it really would look like in the text viewer. I take one look at this and I'm instantly intimidated, like, where do I even begin? But by looking at it piecemeal and line by line, I can already chunk, and let me make it larger, if it will let me. Okay, I can already see. I simply cut and pasted into that with color coding all the way down to here, and the way I was able to discern that was incident 453.436 stops here. And that's what you were just seeing color coded. And then each incident, so my next incident, 453.437, is right here. And if you look at it piecemeal, it starts becoming that elephant you eat one bite at a time. Not too bad. All right. Go ahead and get back to our browser. All right, so let's go ahead and import this. And we purposely, Sarah and I were working, we purposely added people to the file, personnel to the NFIRS data, because we want to see if we did it right. And if we didn't, it will give us an error message, and that's okay. That's how we learn. So I'm going to select the file. So in step 2, and I guess I really do want to mention this. So forgive me for reading what's on the screen, everybody, but there was enough information here that it's worth reiterating verbally as well as on the screen. So the only file extensions that we can bring in are text, a .inc, and a dep. And those are generated by other RMSs, and then of course the text file is what we're working with today. So I'm going to select a file. It will then open up your Finder or your Explorer if you're on a Windows machine, and I already know that this is the file I want. And I'm going to choose it, and it immediately does a validation check. So right here, I have a validation error. And so my message is import tool invalid link parameter passed on here. So what this tells me is something is either too short or probably in this case too long. And the substring function at row number 87. So row number 87 in the file, I've got something that the length, the parameter is, the length is too long. And as Sarah or Brittany looks at this, can you eyeball and see which one it is off the top of your head? And I'll keep it on the screen for just a moment. And this is good because chances are if you're doing this on your own and you don't have experience doing this, you're going to be like, okay, time to call support. Because I might do that too. The question is how do I fix this? So Sarah says it was something that was done when she added the 1810 record. And we've got a question. The @ sign. Brittany's saying it's the @ sign. Is that right, Brittany? Okay. So what that means is, the good thing is I'm going to fix my file. But instead of bringing in personnel, actually, you know what? Let's do that. Let's fix it. I'm going to go in and open up that document. This is good, actually. And it's possible, it showed just the one error, so hopefully it doesn't stop at the one error and then give us that. It should show all the errors. So line 87, I've got an @ sign, and some text editors will give you the line item. So let me just look here. This is 916 is the call. So you can see, guys, I know this is incident 916. So as I'm looking at this bewildering gibberish, what looks like gibberish, I know that if I go down to 916, and let me make this larger because that's nothing more annoying than doing a class and you can't read it. The students can't read it. So I know it's 916, so I'm going to go here and just highlight 916 and take a look and see what needs to be corrected. And it's very possible, well, it's just that one, but I got an @ sign at the end. 2365. But it doesn't have the @ sign here. I'm guessing this is line 87 because that's where Kim's name's at. So, Brittany, where do you see the error that I can correct here that I'm not seeing without taking up the entire class time? Let's see. Bring that up a little bit. And if anybody else sees it, chime in too. It's going to be one of those lines where Kim's name is in it. So it's either this line, and I like the text editors that show the line, the actual line you're on. This one, or most likely this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove this line item here and see if that corrects it, and just we'll go with it. Try it again, and if this doesn't work, I've got a backup plan, so don't worry. We always go to plan B. Okay, that 916 file's giving us fits. Okay, let's do this, everybody. What I was hoping to do is be able to get some personnel here so we can do the mapping of personnel, but what we'll do is, I know this file works. So this is where you get that happy feeling inside when you have your file is valid. Now the one thing I'm not able to show you, unfortunately, with that is Unmap Personnel. So what I want to briefly explain, and if you can imagine, if you're going to imagine, we brought in personnel and it says, okay, I've got people from my NFIRS data, the 1810 information, and it's saying, these are people that are in the NFIRS file, and these are people in my system. I need to basically map them. So if it comes over as T. Lewis versus Thomas Lewis, I can map that over to say, okay, anytime you see T. Lewis, it should be this user. So it doesn't duplicate the same person, just spelled a different way. That's probably the best way I can explain it. And if we can get that other file fixed, I will try that again before we wrap up today. But I've got a pretty good feeling you understand what I'm going with here. And the example I can give you is this. Those of you that have a CAD link, it's very similar in concept to this. So if you have a CAD link, and I know not all of you do, but the concept is this. It's like user mapping. I'd have a list of people here that's their name in the emergency reporting system, but their CAD calls them this, or calls them a number. What comes in matches this instead of duplicating. That's what's going on here in this import tool. So thank you for being patient here, everybody. We thought we might run into an error here, and I know you're all saying you should have tested it beforehand. We actually wanted to make sure, we wanted to try it live just to see if we would get those errors. And if Sarah's able to tweak that file, she'll send it back to me, and we'll re-import it with personnel. So then you get a summary on step 4, personnel mapped to existing system users. So of course, if we mapped existing users to map users to existing users, or if we didn't map, then we created new users in the system, and that they will automatically populate the personnel list in your administration module, but only with the name. You'll have to go in and add all the other fields, of course, because it wasn't part of that NFIRS document, the text file. Okay, your file is now ready to be imported. So we've done the validation process, we've mapped personnel, and then I'm going to click import. So what this step does, and this is why we mentioned earlier to chunk your data, because the import tool it does it fast, but if you have thousands and 10, 20, 30,000 incidents, it's smart to break it down. So I'm going to click import, and it tells me, and we purposely picked a small file, but I have 7 incidents that are imported into my system. No users, no apparatus, and no ranks. Now the reason I don't have any apparatus imported is because every apparatus that was listed, and again for visual, every apparatus listed here is already in the system. If it weren't in the system, it would add a new apparatus. And we get the happy exclamation mark of being finished. Okay, so Sarah has sent me that file again, so I'm going to have my Outlook download it, but we're going to continue on. Any questions so far? Okay, everybody, awesome. So now it's time to go see what we imported. So I go to incidents, and one trick that I did here to make life easier for all of us is I'm going to do an advanced search because I did a separate FDID. Some departments, because of that they're a single account with multiple FDIDs, or they run into across states, they have multiple FDIDs. So in this case, I made sure that this is my demo account, but this is another FDID that can be part of this account. Thanks to Brittany, she was able to add that FDID so I could successfully import that data, because if I imported that with a different FDID, it would be rejected because this account is not set for that specific FDID. So you can only import your data. So I'm going to just search that, and you should see 7 incidents here. I'm going to make it bigger for you guys. And those, all of that, everything that you saw here has now been imported. And so this is incident number 453436. That's this incident here. So let's take a peek at it. Now it's locked, so I would have to unlock it, and you have to have administrator privileges to unlock it. So I click unlock, and I'll go back and do that so you can see that message again, but I want to show you the data first. So I can go in, and it is now unlocked. All right, I still have to do a second unlock here. We don't recommend this because now you have to go and revalidate it. And the revalidation occurs for a couple reasons. One, our system's going to do a check on that existing data, and typically there's going to be issues with times here. And the validation message we're going to get is it needs a response mode, an en route, and in-service date. Now, part of the reason is this particular account has the EMS module. These are required for those that have EMS. Because NFIRS doesn't require these 3, you probably would not run into that issue in your account. But in this case, because I unlocked it, it's now running a higher level of validation to that incident. And I'm not going to go through and find out. Well, now I'm curious. This is that whole issue where on-site materials is coming up as a validation error. But if I uncheck that, I should be good to go. And then there's one other spot I have to check it, but that's a separate topic that we can address later. As far as this, that's the NFIRS issue we're having right now, as far as that particular item. But bottom line is, what really counts is all of that data is here, and then the incident, all those apparatus that we talked about, they're all populated here with their times. And it is always wise to just simply leave the imported incidents alone and don't unlock them. Because keeping in mind, you're bringing this in not to resend to NFIRS. You're bringing this in so you have a series of incidents going back, and you can go back, I believe, as far as 2003 for importing, because that's, I think, when NFIRS 5 became official, and that's what our system is coded to validate incidents from. So the point here is not to go in and unlock and change things. The point here is now you can run analytics on all of this data. You can pull up reports on response times. You can pull up anything having to do with incidents. You can now pull reports on and have historical data that you wouldn't otherwise previously have. So the error message, or not the error message, the warning message that you would get here is you're about to open a previously imported incident. If you unlock it, it will require the incident to be validated, and any missing data required will have to be entered again. So what you want to do is cancel in most cases, because you're not bringing this in to edit it. You're bringing this in from your previous RMS or from NFIRS Direct. Let me take a pause here to see if we've got, oh, thank you, Sarah. I'm going too fast. She says on this file, it is not what we're talking about. It is acres burned. None or less than 1. And now we're good. She's awesome. Thank you, Sarah. She saw it real fast there. Okay. So far, so good. So I'm going to take a pause just to see if you have any questions. So we imported 7 incidents. They all came in successfully. If you give me just a moment, everybody, I'm going to download the corrected file that Sarah sent me and import it. Now, it won't import the incidents, but it may import the personnel. And I know there's some of you going out there, you know what? I'm just going to have emergency reporting do my imports if I have an import. And you know what? We'll help you with that. That's why we've got Brittany here today too, because she does this on a regular basis for customers. So let me allow me to go back into the admin module and do another import. Following the same steps, and we'll see how it validates this time. Got number 3. Yep, still getting an error message. So this is where if you, and to be sure, depending on your previous RMS, now if you're getting this directly from NFIRS, and I'll show you how that goes, how you can do that, you should be fine. But sometimes other RMSs don't have the same validation standards that we do, so you're bound to get error messages. If you see something like this, it's perfectly fine. In fact, we want you to contact us. We will help you fix it and get it imported, so you have your data. Helping you manage your data is a big deal for us, and not to make it harder or to hold it hostage or anything like that. We want you to be able to do it and to do it well and promptly. So again, we're getting this error message again, and it's likely to do with just either the data strings in it, or in this case, it's just saying invalid length. So somewhere along the lines, and a good example is this. The length is too long. You are limited, and this is a hats off to Brittany for reminding me on this, 5 digits maximum here, 5 characters for an apparatus. If you go beyond 5, you get an error. Okay, she knows what it, Sarah knows. See, they do this all the time. Us trainers, we're not out there doing these imports as much. So I kind of took this on to tackle it because I need to learn too, but I think she says she's got it. So I'm going to, and Sarah, if you want to type in what you found, so that's an opportunity for us to learn, that would be great. I'm going to download it one last time, and I really appreciate everybody's patience. But again, the good thing is what we're encountering, chances are you'll encounter some of these same things. So better to learn it here in practice than to do it on your own or have it occur on your own. Okay. Nope, still some error. That's okay. We'll move along. So there's our 7 incidents, and just know that they will show as it's the same green lock when you complete an incident. However, it will have the word imported underneath. And any incident in our system that's been reviewed, well, again, depending on the report, but certainly the reports that require incidents to be reviewed will be available here to generate reports from. All right. We can talk about exports if you needed to export it. We'll go to that shortly, but what I wanted to talk to you about is here. The bulk export utilities. So what we're going to do is, for the pathway, it's your NFIRS home. So it's this URL, nfirs.fema.gov. So if I were to type that into my URL, it's going to take me right here. And we can go into the user section. Oops. If you needed to change the password, this is the web-based tools. I'm sorry, web-based tools. So what this gives you is the ability, and what we're talking about today is just exporting. So I can go to the bulk export utility, and it's important to know that to be able to access this, okay, to begin an incident export, you have to have a username, of course your state, and then your password, but you have to go through your state NFIRS program manager to access this. And if you don't have a state NFIRS program manager, you go straight to NFIRS to be able to access this. So an example when you would go here is that if you've consistently reported well to NFIRS and you want to pull this data to be able to import it into our system, this is the go-to place. And the data coming from NFIRS, because of our validation tool, should give us that valid message in the validation, the import tool. So this is an option for you to grab your data, but there is a process to where you'd have to go through the state or direct to NFIRS to get a username and set a password to be able to access that. And it's going to be tied to your FDID to be able to pull this information. So that is called the bulk export utility. The pathway is web-based. So we go to NFIRS, the nfirs.fema.gov, web-based tools, bulk export utility. And then from bulk export utility, we begin bulk export, begin the BEU Fire Department export, bulk export utility export. So that's one of the pathways to get some tools. But the other part of this website that those of you that are into NFIRS, and if you haven't been here already, is the training that's offered. And I recommend this for anybody that's an upwardly mobile officer in your organization, because at some point in their career, they're going to have to manage NFIRS and the data that's going into your system. And sometimes their site can be tricky to navigate, so bear with me here. Like I said, tricky to navigate. Wow, it's taken just to a okay, some documentation. Let's go to reference guides. This is the one I really like. If you haven't downloaded this, I strongly recommend that you do. It is a document that will help you answer a lot of questions about NFIRS coding. So above and beyond just importing the data into your system, managing NFIRS, and when people have questions about, well, what code should I put here? This is the go-to document that you want to be able to reference, the NFIRS 5.0 reference guide. Again, it's this URL /documentation/reference. This one is particularly good. In fact, I have it on my desktop. It's called the NFIRS Coding Questions Guide, and this was put out for 2014. I reference it regularly because I get a lot of questions about coding NFIRS incidents, and it gives you some common questions and challenges that occur when documenting NFIRS. For example, what constitutes an exposure? And I'm not going to get into it today because we have a blog article about it, but these are the types of questions it answers. We think of exposure as one thing in the fire service. It's what you protect from catching on fire. But in NFIRS, it's actually damage to another structure or property outside of the exposure zero, the initial source of the fire. So that's a great document. This page, these two documents will help make you basically the NFIRS go-to person in your organization for answering questions. So did want to show you that. And the other one, if I can get to that site, which would be great, if it doesn't take me to a default page, is the ability to take not only classes, but they also have NFIRS grams. And this is very frustrating when they have it, don't go to their the site that it says it's going to go to. Let's see if I'll get, it's only because we're online today that it's giving me grief. When in doubt, go to the sitemap. Copy break training is very good, but we want NFIRS. So hang tight. I'm going to get there because I want you to see this. Okay, so this is a summary of what NFIRS is, and it has some pretty neat statistics here. 22 million incidents are reported to them every year. 23,000 fire departments report, and this is what's recorded. But down here, in their training, you have self-study courses on 5.0. It's on and off campus, but also a self-study. If you're a program manager, there's a class there. But take a look at these NFIRS grams. They don't come out often, but when they come out, they're really of high quality. So that's the coding questions I talked to you about earlier, but then calculating fire loss, we get this question a lot, is how do I calculate fire loss? And this breaks it down explicitly by how NFIRS wants it documented, and it's really informative. So these are the kind of things that are out there for NFIRS questions above and beyond the importing of NFIRS data. And there's a lot of nuances. I mean, I spent 22 years in the fire service, and I visit this periodically. I learn something new just coming here because you think you've got it down, you've done dozens of fire reports, and sure enough, you read something and go, wow, I've been doing that one wrong. One of them was the whole mutual aid and automatic aid. So, all right. I think we're kind of near the end here, but I wanted to take a few minutes to answer any questions that you have. I appreciate you indulging us in what is kind of can be a complicated process because we're taking data from other vendors or even from NFIRS and ensuring that it works within our system so you have this kind of data that you're seeing now, previous incidents in historical record available to you. And in most instances, it works seamlessly. If you want to tackle this on your own, I'd say go for it, give it a try. If you run into snags, that's what our support team and Brittany and the training team's there to help you with. So I think with that, I'll open it up to questions and see if Sarah or Brittany would like to add anything. And I guess I'll ask the group too that's participating today, have any of you used the import tool? And if you have, just send a quick chat message to me, and I'll open up your mic and you can kind of tell me the experience that you had. If anybody hasn't, then I'll. So I guess the next question is, based on what we've covered today and some of the process involved, are you guys ready to try and tackle this yourself? And if you are, I'd say great, go for it. And if you'd like some assistance, don't ever hesitate to reach out to our team. We are here to help, especially with these kind of imports. I've heard plenty of stories of the challenges involved here, but they've refined that import tool I showed you so nicely that somebody who's not even full-on computer savvy can go ahead and do it and do a pretty good job with it. Okay, I'll stay on. We've got about a minute or two to the top of the hour. I'll stay on for a couple more minutes in case somebody comes up with a question. But other than that, everyone, thank you very much for joining us today. And I hope we were able to provide some benefit to you in using the system at a more advanced level, especially those of you that are administrators in the system. Thank you very much to Sarah and to Brittany for sharing their expertise today. It was a big help as always, you guys. Thank you so much. All right, and with that, we'll call it a wrap today. We will see you in 2 more weeks on May 21st. Two of our trainers, Chris and Ryan, will be talking about water supply, ISO, and you getting the most out of the hydrant module. Have a great day, everybody, and stay safe. Thanks again.